Good evening, everyone. I think we're on air. Well, we're delighted that you all have come out this evening. We have an update. I can speak up, but there's a right. Can everyone hear me all right? Good. Well, we're delighted that you all came out tonight to join us in an update on the Edward Little High School rebuilding project. My name is Mark Lee, and I'm an architect with Harriman. I've been working on the project now for a couple of years, I think. So we're kind of, I think we're passing the 2-year mark on this phase of it. And it's an exciting time. We're really digging into the details. It's becoming more real all the time. And with me tonight, I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Lisa Sawin. I'm also an architect at Harriman. I've been working on this project. I think it was awarded in the winter of 2016. So we're just going past the 3-year mark on working on this, and it's been a pleasure every step of the way. Can everyone hear us? Okay. There is a bad echo. We'll try and speak up, but you're going to get a little reverberation once we do. Yep.
Yeah.
It might be better. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to pause a second for technology. And we appreciate you raising your voice if you have questions and you can't hear us as we go through the presentation. So please don't be bashful. I know. It's good.
Just like the council people, they don't speak up.
We'll make sure you hear us.
Turn it on right now. Testing. Okay. We're going to try it. Plan A doesn't work. Try Plan B. But let's bring these down.
Yeah, that should work. No?
It's louder.
All right. Well, you're going to get it twice tonight, the presentation, so it'll be about a second apart. Very, very good. So here we go. We'll run through the show, and we hope you ask questions, and we'll all do the best we can to live through the reverberation. So what we'd like to cover tonight for information is some work that a group or subgroup of the building committee as well as community members have been working on. We call those the subcommittees, and we have a series of subcommittees that have been assisting in the design and decision-making of the new high school. So we'll share what information that they're recommending be included in the school. We'll also update folks on what we call programming, and programming is all the functions that happen inside of the school. And we listen to the people who use the school to understand what they need and record all that information, and the school is designed around those needs. So that programming update, we'll give you a quick one on that. We'll give you some progress updates in terms of what the design of the school looks like. So that will have some visuals of the different spaces, the major spaces in the building itself. And then we'll also talk about next steps. And we want to leave enough time for questions that you folks may have as we wrap this up. And we understand that there's a meeting at 7 o'clock, so we'll do the best we can to get through the information efficiently. So with that, I'm going to turn the next information over to Lisa.
Okay, so the subcommittee updates. We had 6 subcommittees. We had athletics and site, which was headed up by Scott Anier and Todd Sampson. We had performing arts subcommittee. We had John Bausman and Bill Buzza. Sustainability and building systems was led by Bonnie Hayes. Community use and partnerships was led by Michelle McLennan. And fundraising was led by Katie Grondin and communication by Adam Hansen. and we'll get into some detail. Yeah, thank you. Thank you to all of those who led those groups, and there is a laundry list of folks that supported those groups. So cheers to the community for all your hard work. So we're going to give a sort of high level. we're gonna fight technology every step of the way here. All right, let's see if I can trick it. Aha. Nope. No trickery. All right, so just pretend. All right, so bear with us one more time. Yay, thank you. All right, so subcommittee, athletic and site. So each of these subcommittees, we met several times through the summer and the fall, and we had certain subjects that we are going to tackle. And what you're seeing tonight is really the summary of what they arrived at for recommendations to the building committee to make sure was included in the project. And again, the recommendations, everything is budget dependent, but really this is what we heard from them and is trying to be folded in at this time. So on site, grandstand seating proposed to have approximately 1,470 seats on the home side with a press box, access from the bleachers, and 400 seats on the visitor side. So I expect to see a lot of folks on the home side for all these football games and all the other events that are happening there. Storage, an extra storage building is proposed to be added to the track area, as adding storage under the bleachers would be difficult, and they are pre-manufactured and more costly if the bleachers were custom designed. So that's what we're exploring at this time. Lighting, looking to put lighting on the football/soccer field, baseball/field hockey, and the tennis courts. Stadium concessions. Positioning the building with sight lines to the scoreboard and designed to be both enclosed and open air for grilling. So it was really important that those who are volunteering to run that concession stand can still see the scoreboard, and you have the flexibility of cooking inside the building as well as a covered area outside. In-ground irrigation, so making sure that the natural grass fields have irrigation on them. And then interior concessions. So this was a very important topic to this subcommittee, making sure that we had really two concession spaces. There's one inside the gymnasium, 200 square feet there, as well as another one right outside the Performing Arts Center, so that you have the flexibility of being able to have concessions in both those areas. If folks are running the concessions for the gymnasium, they can see the events that are happening there, as well as sell things for the theater. And so this is just a blow-up of the site where the new track and competition field will be. And so you can see in the lower left-hand corner, very close to where the track is right now, just rotated slightly so we can fit all of the complement of fields we need to on this site. And then you have the new multi-purpose field, and then all of the events that support track and field around that. So the Performing Arts Subcommittee, here was sort of the outline of what they covered at different meetings throughout the summer and fall. In August, they had a discussion about types of uses in the theater and talked about potential tour locations. And what that means is what theaters around the state or in different states they were going to go visit to really analyze what worked well, what didn't work well. We want to make sure that we do it right. The second meeting, they were introduced to our theater consultant. They go by the name Theater Projects. And so the consultant came up and met with them and got to hear firsthand the needs and desires from the committee, and has been working alongside us every step of the way. And discussions of theater features were had at that meeting as well. The third meeting in October, we had several options that we were exploring. They arrived at selecting option 2, which is a balcony option. And we arrived at having a stage house that's about 49 feet high, and reviewed the organizational layout of all the support spaces, so back of house spaces. And a series of features that were explored, the lobby, concessions, and toilet rooms, really looking at that configuration. One of the theaters they toured was Westbrook Performing Arts, and some of the feedback they got there was the ticket window is too close to the entry door, so they actually don't use it. They set up a table further in because they don't have enough room to queue. So making sure there's adequate room to queue and gather and really have the community come together before and after the events. And then be able to get their tickets and go in. House configuration and balcony arrangement. They also went to Merrill Auditorium in Portland and looked at the balcony there, the back of house, what was or was not working. So a lot of time was spent exploring the best configuration for those back of house spaces and really thinking about how people flow behind the stage and not interrupt what's happening on stage. We dialed in the stage size. We discussed an orchestra pit. There is not an orchestra pit. There is the ability to remove some seats up front to be able to have music in front of the stage or have the orchestra on the stage. We looked at different ways to access the stage. We have a series of vestibules that we can have light locks getting onto the stage. We looked at different rigging options, and we came up with a mix of manual as well as automatic rigging options. I think at Westbrook, they had arrived at, there was a large expense for having not having a mix of the two. So making sure that we explore that. Backstage access and support spaces we've kind of covered, and then use the model lease facility only. And so what that is this comes from Westbrook, and what they do is they just lease the facility through these organizations. They are responsible, if they lease it, for all of their advertising, their ticketing, everything else, so that the folks at Westbrook don't have to take on that task. They're literally just renting the space to them, and then explored parking at both of those options as well. So with that, we present the current design iterations of the theater. So really looking at making sure we revisited some of the conversations we had about having a warm and welcoming space. So really looking at using lots of wood in the space to warm it up, and making sure that the focal point, and we're really drawing the eye to the stage itself. And again, these are just sort of process, the evolution of the theater right now. And so we're right now looking at the theater down below. This is looking back at one of the entrances to the theater. And then this is up on the balcony, looking down to the stage. Another subcommittee was sustainability in building systems. And so the focus on this subcommittee really became with how do we use the building as a teaching tool? So it's great to incorporate sustainable features, but really how do we use it as an educational tool for the students? And a lot of the things that you do in sustainable design, you don't always see. And so we arrived at making sure there's plenty of visual and digital displays to where we can come up with graphics and signage and imagery explaining what went into the design to make it sustainable. But also having ways to expose some of the systems, especially in some of the CTE areas that are the career technical education spaces that are focused on architectural and engineering, or mechanical and robotics, those programs that really want to understand how this building is going together and where are the systems in the building, where is the structure, what does it look like? So looking at opportunities to expose that in moments within the building for those students to really see the application of that. We talked about commissioning and building controls. And so in a nutshell, folks that may not know what commissioning is, it's really making sure we have a commissioning agent that comes on board. They work with the designs team and the owner to understand what their project requirements are for how all the systems in the building are to operate, the efficiency they want them to operate, the building controls and how they want that controlled. And so we arrived at which systems to have commissioned. And a lot of these are very typical systems: mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Lately, we've seen building envelope become more and more used in commissioning, and that's really making sure that the systems of the envelope are performing the way they're supposed to. So windows and roofing and everything are watertight. Air infiltration, we're hitting the air infiltration rates that we're supposed to. And the one that we're looking to add on this project is commissioning of lockdown and security. And so when we really get into the safety and security measures of this building, making sure all of the technology that we've added into the building is commissioned to make sure that it's operating the way it's intended. And then this group also had the fun of exploring exterior and interior materials. And so many of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with this rendering. We started to explore early on with this group what those materials were on the building. And so anywhere you see that really light gray, it's a cementitious panel. It's called a tactile panel. And that was one of the building materials we arrived at. Brick, so sourced locally here. So bringing in materials right out of our backyard. Trespa, which is a phenolic resin panel, very durable, is the darker gray material on the exterior of the building. As well as at the entry, you'll see a little bit of wood. It looks like wood, but it's also a Trespa. It's a phenolic resin, but it has the warmth and characters of wood as well, making it very inviting at the entry. And then we have glazing or windows. And you can see where each of those is applied on the building with the numbers there. And so when we go into the interior, we went back and really looked in the beginning of this project. We set out with what is the quality of place that we're trying to create here at Edward Little High School. And the words that the different stakeholders that we met with had come up with was the sense of belonging, welcoming, innovative, collaborative, bright, modern, and current. And so then we started to think about design strategies that we could pair up with each of those words or phrases, and then think about how do we take those design strategies. So for example, welcoming. So we start to think about welcoming and this idea of branding areas and creating clusters. So if we think about for career technical education, making sure that we are branding those different areas so that we see them as businesses, because that's really what we're trying to develop those skills in the students around sort of this idea of a business. We can start to use materials to brand those areas and make them welcoming, and we can use things that are like wood and have a warmth to them. So this was sort of our strategy for applying creating these quality of spaces and using strategies such as wayfinding, so making it sure that it's easy to navigate the building. You know where you are. If you've ever been in a building and you feel constantly lost, it's really disorienting. So making sure that we can use the materials to help with that. Innovative, collaborative, so making sure that things are transparent. We're really celebrating learning. We're putting learning on display. Bright, we're having connections to the outdoor and nature. And so you can see the different brand clusters that we created on the side. So really thinking about how we give areas of high importance within the school different identities. So really focusing on the student commons or the dining area, which is a very big social area for the students. Looking at what we call the town square, and that's really the first experience you have when you walk in the door. So what is the tone we're setting? How welcoming are we making this? How bright and cheerful? And the classroom communities, you'll see in a minute here, we've created pull-out spaces so that different students from different classes can collaborate out in what we're calling classroom node. And so a whole community of classrooms is centered around that node. And then the CTE programs have a brand to them. The art corridor has a brand and identity, and athletics has a brand and identity to it as well. So with that, I'll let Mark walk us through the interior renderings.
So this is the exciting part where we can actually start to see the building take shape. And as you walk in the front door, this is the view that you get from the main lobby. And it looks straight through to what we're calling the student common. That's that far distant image where you can see sort of in the center right of the screen. But what we've done here is used natural materials. We've got a wood ceiling that comes in. You have natural light that comes in from a courtyard. So the windows on the left-hand side as we're looking in this space are images right out to the courtyard itself. The administration, the folks that are eyes on the school as people are coming and going, we've just passed that area to the right. And so the right-hand side, you can sort of see a wall that's there, but that's the administrative suite. And so to get into the school itself, it's a secured vestibule. You walk in, much like you do today. It's the control point to make sure that folks that coming in are the ones that belong in the school building itself. And then there are some important functions from here. You can just see a green wall just beyond the red. It goes red, white, and green. That little green area that you see right there, that's the cafe. And that is open to the public, and it's staffed by the career technology program that currently operates the Green Ladle through LRTC in Lewiston. So there's a complementary function here in the new Auburn high school, and so that's wonderful because it expands the opportunities for students in culinary arts. Right now, they have a waiting list of people trying to get into that. And so in addition to running the cafe, there's a full academic program and teaching kitchen associated with it, and that's a little further down in that quarter. The red area that you see as well, and you can just see the entrance to it, but that's actually, I think we're not allowed to call it a salon, but it really functions as a salon, and it's for cosmetology students, and so that's part of the career technology program too, and it's a function that's open to the public. And so it's a great opportunity for the public to come in, get a haircut, and for students to learn. So if you're willing to experiment, hey, you'll be contributing to the cause. And so there's this interaction with the public and these career technology programs, which we think is extremely valuable. And not only do we want to encourage the public to come in and use the spaces in that way, but we also are encouraging collaboration between the career technology programs and the traditional academic programs. And that's really kind of a hallmark of the new Edward Little High School. It's an element you don't have right now with the career technology program. So the next one, as we move down, this is what will replace it. So any of you, and by a show of hands, how many have been in the current cafeteria in, oh yeah. So you know how lovely it is. And so we heard loud and clear is make sure there's natural light in the cafeteria. And so we've kind of turned the paradigm of what it is. It's really intended not just as a room to go eat, but it's really a space in the building that can be used in many, many different ways. What you see right here is that there's a window to the left that looks out onto the courtyard, and so that lets in a lot of natural light, and we're hoping that in nice weather you might be able to actually eat outside by going out a pair of doors and eating on a patio out in the courtyard. You also see light coming from the far end of the space as well, and this is about a 2-story height space, so it's really, really bright, open, inviting, entirely different from what you have now. The other way that we've modeled this is that in the area that you get your food, the servery, is behind a wall over on the right-hand side. And the idea is that we can open that up when it's dining hours, but we can close it off and still use the space as a gathering space, perhaps for study halls or other events when we're not using it for food service. You can also see that sort of rectangular screen on the left-hand side, and that turns the space into a multi-purpose functional audiovisual space or lecture hall or gathering space. So we can actually project onto that surface, and you can see a little hint on the left-hand side. There's a wood wall that has an angle to it. That's the community stair that we've incorporated into it, and what that looks like is right here. And so So that stair cascades from this main lobby level up to the second floor, and it's really like a set of bleachers that students can kind of just land in on throughout the day. They can certainly use it during meals to sit on, but we also, it can be used as tiered seating that faces that projection wall. And so it really makes that space even more functional in many ways. So this is sort of looking at that main corridor where we're now down at the far end of it, looking back to the entrance where we started, and you can see the doors where the entrance doors you come in, and you can also now see the classroom bar out in the courtyard, and so if you look through that large window, you can see that space as well. And there's that volume that you can see a bunch of windows punched on through the courtyard. That's the library volume that pushes out into the courtyard, and you get a little glimpse more of that cafe storefront where it has a little circular emblem and a presence on the left-hand side. This is a separate entrance where we've grouped together the public functions of the gym. So this is the major entrance into the gym. There's there's another set of doors, but this is where you come in, kind of an after-hours entrance into the gymnasium itself, and 3 doors there. And then it also marks the entrance to the theater, which is right there as well. So the entrance to those 2 very, very public spaces are off of this. We have concession and ticket windows next to the theater. And also there's a set of stairs that you don't see in here that takes you up to that balcony level that we saw earlier in the theater design. And these are sort of early renderings, and so but you can see into the new Eddie's gym and bleachers to match the capacity that we currently have just through those 6 doors right there. And as Lisa mentioned earlier, we grouped the classrooms in neighborhoods around these breakout spaces. Unlike the current school design where we have corridors with doors off of the corridors and everything happens inside of the classroom, the new ways of thinking about how to encourage collaboration and work beyond simply just the classroom to really make a culture of learning throughout the building is to create these types of breakout spaces. And so we are putting flexible furniture that can be used for independent work or can be used for group study. And these occur outside of a whole area. And what it does is it helps to also build identity and break down the scale of the school. And so all of these clusters, there are 6 clusters in total. And so there are 3 stories, 2 on each story. And so they help sort of organize the building that way. And make it also easy to find yourself, so you know when you run into one of these clusters, you know exactly where you are in the building because they're all branded differently with color and signage, and so. But they also have the other great parts about them is that they have eyes on them. So what we've done is distributed the administration throughout the building, so there's an administrative presence in these. So the assistant principals have presence on the corner. And that allows us to have eyes on those areas of the building. We also have spaces for teachers to work and collaborate together off of these spaces as well. And so there are these professional teachers' spaces in these as well. The other thing we fought hard for with the Department of Education, as you look down, there's windows into the corridors from the courtyard. And you can sort of see that natural light spilling in a little bit on the right-hand corridor. And we thought that was really, really important as you walk through the building to get a sense of what's going on. Right now, as you walk through the current Edward Little High School, you can walk around that corridor, that sort of donut circle corridor, and you don't get glimpses of the outside light until you get close to maybe the entrances. But here, as you move through this space, you'll always have a sense of what's going on in connection to the outdoors. And here's another view of that, and it shows how our intention is to be able to put marker boards there, so students are working together on video screens and marker boards, and they're sitting there with their laptops and working away, and create spaces in the building that really belong to the students too. And we think that's really, really important to give them a sense of this is their place as much as it is the staff as well. And so those are some of our first passes at some now starting to really see the building take shape and the exciting work that we've been ramping up with over the past 2 years with with the various committees and really starting to shape that into the spaces themselves. The other important aspects of the project that aren't necessarily directly associated with the design are things like fundraising. As you all know, as we geared up to the referendum vote for this, there's a lot of questions about, can we reduce the burden on taxpayers with all the things that we're trying to build into the project? And yes, in the way that the bond is written, the more we can fundraise, the less burden there is on the bond itself. And so there's been a lot of important work in reaching out to understand how we can fundraise certain parts of the building, and Katie Gronin's been working really hard at helping evolve that and work that forward. So that's been moving forward as well. And then I think this is lastly but not least, we have our communication subcommittee as well, and that's making sure that we're keeping updated notices about the project on the website, reaching out when we have important meetings, such as tonight, to make sure that we get word out that you folks can track the progress of the project as it moves forward. So, and now I'm going to switch back over to Lisa here to give you the next chapter of what we've been working on.
So we've been pretty busy working on programming, and as Mark said, that's really making sure that we dive deep into what are all the necessities of the building and what are the different programs or different departments need in the building to really deliver education. And one of the things we do is we do several surveys throughout this process. We did one pre-referendum, we did one post-referendum, but we really want to hear from the staff and the faculty. We want to understand the essence of Edward Little. And this is always fun for us to really understand what are those words or phrases that they start to apply to the essence of Edward Little. And so this is the results of that. The 35% of the respondents said community center of community. And we've heard that since day one. And I think we've worked really hard to make sure that this is just as much about the students as it is about the greater community. And this is really a center for the entire community. Almost equally, we heard that you want to make sure it's welcoming. And so we're working really hard to make sure that we have warm, inviting materials, and we're going to start to use color as wayfind. One of the biggest wayfinding elements we used is natural daylight, as Mark said, that courtyard. We fought really hard to make sure we had those openings and moments where you got to experience. So anytime you see that, you can look back and see where you are in relation to the rest of the building, and you don't get lost in the space. We also worked hard to make sure we have skylights integrated on the other half of the building where the courtyard isn't, so we get some natural light as well. 17% of the respondents said innovative, spacious. We're impressed every time we sit down with the staff and hear just how much innovation is happening with the curriculum and all of the collaboration that is happening, all these new programs that keep cropping up, and then with mixing the career technical, as we sit down with both Auburn staff and career technical, and we start to talk about the synergies that are created by putting different programs next to each other, you just see light bulbs going off, and it's really inspiring. Making sure, another word or phrase, bright, modern, current. So making sure that we have, again, natural light, but also modern and current materials and design strategies. And then we heard several other words and phrases, fresh start, flexible, making sure that we have not only flexible spaces, but flexible furnishing. You can really adapt these spaces to be many things. It's open, state-of-the-art, enriching, engaging the community, beautiful and hopeful. And so we continually kind of reflect back and try to make sure we can capturing these words of this essence in the design of the building. We had a really fun meeting with the students. So there is a great group of students that we met with, and I want to say there was about 75 students that met us at 7 o'clock in the morning. And they had way more energy than we did, which was great. And we were we went over what the building was, what the programming was, And there was just this constant chatter and recommendations and questions, and we finally just had to try and organize all the thoughts and all the feedback we were getting, because there was just so many great things being said. But they definitely wanted to, first of all, they were very jealous. They ran straight to Scott and said, how come we can't experience this? But they're also very excited to provide feedback and make sure that future generations are going to have the best building possible. So we heard a lot about the cafeteria. As we said, they would like lots of natural light. They would like round tables or smaller square tables. Right now, anyone that's been in the cafeteria is this long series of rectangular tables up against the wall, which really doesn't promote socialization. It's just a lineup of everybody eating and not interacting and communicating and being part of a community. Having multiple food bar options, so having a greater selection. Efficient food service. We understand there's a pretty long wait. I have to say we're incredibly impressed with the food service staff and what they do with the space they have. They do amazing things. And so they will have a state-of-the-art kitchen going forward. So I think we'll be able to get the food service lines not as long, and there'll be a lot more options. Sufficient space to store backpacks, so making sure there's places for the kids to kind of tuck things out of the way. Courtyard, they're really excited to see the design of the courtyard, and right now they have a courtyard but they can't access it, and it's not a space that they necessarily want to be in. There's no place to hang out, so they wanted to make sure that this new courtyard had benches and tables with umbrellas, and they wanted rocks to sit on. They just really wanted to be out there, making sure there's shaded areas, there's pathways, and make sure they have power outlets outside, as well as outdoor classroom space. So we've really looked at what programs skirt the courtyard, and a lot of the CTE programs have direct access out to that courtyard, especially the robotics, so they can go out and do their robotic competitions outside. And then other priorities. Plenty of bathrooms. We heard this from the students and the staff. So we've made sure that we have plenty of bathrooms in the building. And lots of water fountains with bottle filling stations. Those will be distributed throughout the building as well. A variety of classroom seating, and so making sure that it's not just the typical desk and chair, but there is a variety. Studies show everybody learns differently and is comfortable in whether it be standing or sitting on a rocking chair. So making sure there's a variety. Plenty of outlets throughout the school. With technology, everything needs to be charged these days. Softer lighting, display space for trophy, banners, and student work. So really celebrating all the accomplishments that students are doing. No carpet. They had a strong dislike for carpet. And then lockers are not needed. They do not fit backpacks, and students don't have time between classes to access them. So they're very adamant that they did not want lockers. We are incorporating a small bank of what we're calling day lockers. There are a variety of different sizes, so that kids that do want to store their stuff will have an opportunity. And then we also have bag rooms, which I know you guys have right now, but we have 2 of them over by the athletic area for all of the athletic bags as well. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Mark.
So right now, this is the current state of the site and its layout, and right now we're working with a series of consultants, and the consultants that right now we're working with are have to do with the surveying the site itself to understand all the different features, the existing features, so as we propose these changes, we make sure that we accommodate the necessary changes in the actual site and in the design itself. The geotechnical, which is really looking at the soils and as we look underneath the ground, what we need to support all the weight of the buildings, as well as the roadways and the various requirements for the fields and the subsurface of the fields themselves. As we mentioned earlier, we have a theater consultant that's working on the highly technical details of the theater design. We also incorporate an acoustic engineer on the project as well, and that's really, really important in a learning environment as well as in all the other spaces. You can imagine the sensitivity of acoustics in a theater too. And so we have a consultant for that. And we also employ a educational technology consultant whose sole job is just to understand the best uses of technology in learning environments. And that is a field that changes so rapidly that they need to stay constantly updated on it. We're just getting ideas of what we might put in the classrooms, because the reality is by the time we go to actually procure bids and furnish the technology, it's going to be radically different than what we have now. So that's always sort of a futuristic exercise. It's kind of interesting. The site itself, most of you may have seen, but the layout has pretty much stayed the same since the early days. On this map, Maine Avenue is sort of on that right side. If we to sort of look all the way off in the white space on the right-hand side, that's Maine Avenue side. Western Ave is all the way on the left side, and so the Western Avenue entrance is, as you can see, comes in between where the state, what we're calling the stadium, but it's where the track is, and so that's where the new artificial turf and the grandstands and the concessions and visitor bleachers are all going to be located right in that area. And then we have a multi-purpose field right now that's also artificial turf. And then you can see we were able to accommodate a baseball diamond and a softball diamond, and we've overlain on the outfields of those additional fields. So we have field hockey on the field as well, overlain on top of the baseball field. We also have tennis courts. So as the sort of snake trail that winds down towards Maine Avenue, we've been able to find a flat enough location to put the tennis courts on those on that area of the site as well. So finally, we'll have the sports all on site, and so that was loud and clear what we heard from the community as an important value as we were even thinking about would we reuse this site, or would we look at a different site. So that was important. It really worked out well that we were able to accommodate all these, not easily, but we're able to do it. So this is the floor plan, and again, there's a lot of detail here to look at, and it's a little confusing. So I'll just kind of give you it from a diagrammatic purpose. The main entrance is sort of almost in the center. The center orange square at the bottom of the page is the administrative block, and so to the left of that is where the main entrance is. And so the idea that we have the administrative presence monitoring who's coming and going, and that is the primary entrance to and from the building, and that all the building exteriors are monitored with access control. The courtyard, you can see, is that white space right on the left-hand side, and the classrooms circle around that courtyard. So there we go. Thank you. And then the library is right at the heart of the school, and so it also can be used off of that common corridor, Main Street, if you will, as you come in. So that can be open after hours and come right into that area. We can close off the entire classroom wing and leave all the other public functions on the left-hand side, or I'm sorry, on the right-hand side open, and close off the left-hand side of the building. The cosmetology and culinary are in that bright green rectangle right there at the center. So as you're coming in, the public's coming in, use them. They're right front and center as you come in the front door. The theater, you can see, is that large blue bar right here, and so you can see the seating and the shape of the seating there. And art rooms are in front of that on the outside of the building, the lower area. And then the music rooms are on the far side, which I don't know if Katie Grani can reach all the way. Oh, look at that. That's pretty good. And then to the right of that, as we move down, we have the main gymnasium right there with bleachers on both sides. We also have an auxiliary gym that is on the front of the building right here. So it's really nice to have the flexibility of having more than just that one space and the size of school that you have. That area right now that I'm being prompted to show is that's the sort of evening entrance, that entrance we gave you where it's the gym and theater entrance, so that after hours entrance. And then locker rooms are adjacent to the gymnasium, so those are on the back side of the building, and some fitness rooms all the way up on the back side. And then the bar on the far right is career technology, and we have early childhood education. So we'll have a program that's moving or expanding from Lewiston over here to Auburn. We also have EMT, fire, fighting science, and law enforcement as well, yes. And all of those are located right there. And we have an apparatus bay, so what we thought would be really fun is we put a window into the apparatus bay near the early childhood ed so that the little kids could actually see all the fire trucks and the really cool stuff. So we think that'd be really fun, as well as adults can see it. But and then we have two other. We have a composites tech processing lab right there, and we also have a precision machine lab as well. So those two manufacturing areas are right there, and then we have an alternative program up in the back edge of the site, RETC.
Special purpose, not alternative.
Special purpose, I'm sorry. Yes, that's correct terminology.
One
Thank
alternate,
you.
one Frank,
Thank you.
and one
Special purpose. Right there. And so that's the footprint of it. It's much larger than your existing school. The classroom bar goes up 3 stories, but the rest of it is incorporates, yeah, so that's the 3-story bar right there. The rest of it is single story with various, the balcony certainly takes another level, but that is really settled down and evolved through the conversations that we've had with all the staff. This is the courtyard design in its current iteration, and so it's kind of fun. What we did was we sort of took all of the access points into the space, and we created some outdoor learning spaces, and we took these fluid pathways to connect all of them together. And so it's a really dynamic, fun space. It certainly looks that way if you were staring at it from above. And you actually will be able to see this because the 2 stories up above the grade level, you'll actually be able to look down and see how that works. But we're envisioning this to be a really dynamic and active space that you can move throughout the day. And where we are with the process, so right now we're marching along with the Department of Ed in developing the design. We have, this summer, we'll complete our major effort in the detailed design of the building itself, and then we submit that to the Department of Education for approval. When they approve the design, then we get the information ready to solicit contractor bids, and so that will happen in the fall. And so we're on target to solicit contracting in the fall this year, with the bid opening and award happening in the winter, with a start of construction in the spring of 2021. And so right now, that's the target pathway, and we're making great strides in that. We anticipate the construction of the school itself, the new school, will take about 2 years to actually construct the building. So that means in the fall of 2023 is when the new school would open. At that time, we'll all get together and celebrate tearing down the existing building. So join us fall of 2023 in that. So I want to see all of you back here for that. And we anticipate the development of the site itself with all the fields will take about another year to accomplish all that. And so that full development won't be complete until about 2024, when all that stuff should be back online. And the new campus will be open in all its glory. And with that, we've reserved, I think, probably about 10 minutes, hopefully, that if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to entertain them at this time. So thank you. Yes, Brian?
If you could go to the fields slide, maybe?
Absolutely.
So I mentioned this in our subcommittee around the athletic complex, and so I'd like to voice it here, but I'm concerned about the layout of particularly the stadium and how it includes the track. We've learned a lot, I think, from Lewiston to know that when they had the track around their former field, they felt like they were miles away from the action. Now they've adjusted for that. They feel like they're too close. I think our fear is that we're going to be too close if we move the track to the other field, where I would propose that there's a happy medium. I've done some homework, and I don't have anything to present to you, but what I've come to believe is that those communities and institutions that have a budget for not one but two fields have elected to move their track to the secondary field so that they can have that intimate community feel around particularly Friday night football games.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is an opportunity lost if we keep that design here with the idea that we might host a state track meet.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that we don't need that much seating for a state track meet. I would also argue that we don't need lights for a state track meet. And I would also look to the other institutions that have already have those types of stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
Why ours would be much more attractive for a state meet versus others, I don't know. I think that would be a step in the wrong direction. If we're trying to make this a community complex, create that community vibe, I think we need to have that intimate setting.
Yeah, that's. Thank you. We'll look. So for I don't know if the people picking this up on the or in the internet or whatnot have that, but the comment is the idea that by putting the grandstands outside of the track, you're further from the play surface for that stadium, and does that sacrifice that intimacy of being able to see that? And so we can look at, is there an option where the track moves to a different field or the seating moves to the other field to be able to accommodate that? We've seen both, and so you're right. There's sort of an aspect of, are you too close or are you too far away, and finding that perfect spot right there. So thank you. We'll look at that a little bit further. Good. Yes.
In terms of the proximity of the Performing Arts Center and the Maine Gymnasium, in the event that something might be occurring in both of those spaces, is the sound going to vary from one place to the other?
So the question is the sound going to be a problem if you've got an event going on in the gym and you've got something going on in the theater? The simple answer is no, that's not a problem. The auditorium is designed in such a way that there's several, you can almost see, maybe our guide can, between the seating and the corridors, so between the seating area and the corridors, you see these bars, and those are rooms that have, they're storage rooms primarily, is the function there, and they actually act to isolate the sound that's happening on the other side. So that they act, as well as the materials on the walls themselves are also designed. We use more than one layer, so that we have a designation on the wall that's called a sound transmission class, and we use a very, very high rated STC rating on the walls of the auditorium to make sure things like that don't happen. Not only from the adjacent spaces, but the other big thing is from the roof. And so you can imagine a rainstorm and the impact of having a bunch of rain coming down there. So we look very, very carefully at mechanical noises in the space. So the air that's flowing in has to be really, really slow, low velocity coming into space. We have to have a lot of insulation to the adjacent spaces, and so it's intended to avoid any problems like that. Yes.
I know you said that there's going to be doors, so they won't be able, the public won't be able to get to the classroom. But will there be, like on the green section, will there be doors there that they shut to, like say at night when there's something going on in the theater, they're limited to just there?
Yeah. So the nice thing, yeah, exactly. We can close off those areas. What we have to do is always maintain enough exiting in the building so that it's always the direction you can allow people to leave, but you want to be able to restrict them from coming in. So we always have to keep that in mind. But we do have, and I don't know if they're all shown on this plan, but there are ways that we close off even the career technology wing, that we can close that off so that people aren't accessing those areas. The other thing, that all the perimeter doors are monitored, so we know if a door has been opened, we can program when it's allowed to open, and so we can control through electronic access the exterior. The intent is to have very controlled access to the building all the time. Yes, sir.
Is part of the building going to be second floor or all one floor?
Yeah, the question is part of the building going to be second floor or all one floor? There are 3 floors in the classroom area, And then there's and our, there we go, thank you, Katie Grande.
This is one floor, then there'll be a second floor, and then the third floor will be here.
Yep.
So that if you wanted to expand later, you would expand on the third floor, here and here.
With elevators, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have 2 elevators in the building. Yep, there's one right there.
Down here.
Keep going down, down, down.
Down, down,
Down.
Right there.
Thank you.
Does everything have to be handicap accessible?
Yes, so there are definite requirements that we have to comply with to make sure the building as accessible as we can possibly make it. So that's reviewed through the state. The state reviews our design to make sure it's compliant.
So when you're coming in, you said you come in and you can see the cafeteria. What about security measures? Like what if someone came in and there's kids sitting in the cafeteria?
Yep, so there's a dashed line, Katie, can you, right there. That is a security door that we can close, and so if there's a lockdown, that closes immediately, and it closes off that whole area of the school.
You can't get through without being buzzed through.
Right.
This is all security.
And there will be cameras, many cameras throughout both the inside of the building, but also on the grounds of the building
It's
as well.
almost a double come in. It'll be a double. That's what we've been seeing is it's not just a one in, it's a double in.
And those would be automatically pressed button.
Exactly, there are panic buttons that are located throughout the building. Yes, Pat?
How are you going to build it on having my hair done?
So that happens when you come to the front door and you say, I'm here to have a wonderful haircut or style. They will still look at your credentials, and then they will, if you seem to be a trusting individual, they'll let you in, and you're allowed to go to the salon. But you have to go through a vetting process to get into the building, just like you would to volunteer to read or anything else. Yes, Pat?
Cost of the wood ceilings, is that increasing our budget?
So the question, as Bonnie asked, was, is the cost of those wood ceilings that were shown increasing the budget? The issue is that when we were going through the building design prior to the referendum, we said, we heard loud and clear from the community that we want this building to be more than just the sort of what the bare minimum that the state will fund. And so the voters supported an additional cost to be able to increase some of the finishes so that it's not a sterile ceiling in there. And so we have some areas that we've enhanced the finishes, and there were monies that were approved for doing that as part of the referendum.
Does it lower the ceiling effect so that you feel more enclosed than like this?
Darker values, the question is, does it make it feel lower than a ceiling like this, or more intimate? Darker ceilings tend to create a little more intimacy, and so wood is a little darker than a white, and so in certain areas we want that, so we're inviting that intimacy and that warmth. Well, good. Remember, everyone, that you all have to come back in 2023 when we tear down the building. But we also, again, continue to look for messaging and updates on the design, and as we evolve more of those images of what the school is going to look like, we'll share those on the website, and look forward to questions and getting back in terms of some of the questions that have been asked tonight. So thank you all very, very much.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 22nd Auburn School Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and let's stand for the pledge, please. Let's start with introductions down here and on my left, please.
Emma Sampson, student representative. Anna LeBlanc, student representative.
Adam Hansen, business manager.
Michelle McClellan, assistant superintendent.
Brian Carrier, mayor's representative.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Katie Gronin, superintendent.
Karen Matthew, Ward 3.
Pam Hart, Ward 2.
Brian Belknap, Ward 4.
Dave Simpson at large.
Rose Walker, Ward 1.
Faith Fontaine is excused tonight from this meeting. So let's begin with, next item on the, for the evening is communications. Anyone have any communications they'd like to share? Seeing none, let's move on to the consent agenda, which is the approval for this evening's meeting agenda and the minutes from the January 8th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Before I ask this next question, I need you to make sure that your vote is counted. Hands are going up pretty quickly and then coming down pretty quickly, so people who are trying to capture the motion and the votes are sort of scrambling a little bit on that one. So with that, any questions or confusions? Anything need to be discussed on the minutes before we vote? Okay, all those in favor? Hands high, held high.
Perfect.
Well done.
Any opposed? Wonderful, motion is passed, thank you. Public participation.
She didn't vote.
Part of the evening, public participation, the opportunity to share with the school committee any topic that is not already on the agenda. Seeing no one running up to the microphone, let's close public participation and move on to student information. There's Anna and Emma this evening.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention that Monday night ELHS held the Midnight Marathon, and we did it last year too, and I think it went really well this year. So it starts off with the basketball game, and we gave away $300 worth of Buffalo Wild Wings gift cards, and I thought that was really cool. And then we also had gift cards from like Dairy Queen, Heath Coast, Starbucks, like a bunch of places, and a bunch of kids did it, so I thought that was really cool. And then after the basketball game, kids went roller skating and then bowling. I went bowling, and I thought that it was super cool because they had like all the lights on and they were playing music and stuff. So yeah, a lot of people went to that, and I thought that it went really well this year, so I'm excited about that. Also, this past weekend, our girls cheerleading team won Most Improved at KVACs, which is a very good accomplishment. And this week, Fairview is having Seth Westcott, the Olympic snowboarder, there to celebrate their winter celebration to win $5,000.
Ladies and gentlemen of the school committee, Anna and Emma will be leaving shortly. They're going to be supporters of the EL Lewiston hockey game tonight. I believe the puck drops at
St.
7.
John. It's
St.
St. John's.
Sorry, St. John's EL. Puck drops at 7:50, so they will be leaving us shortly so that they can go and attend that event. Thank you, ladies. All right, superintendent's reports. This evening, we are beginning with the solar RFP update. So it's an update from Adam Hansen, our business manager, letting us know where we are at for some potential cost-saving opportunities.
Yes, so last meeting, you heard from Charlie Agnew from Competitive Energy Services, which is a consortium that we are part of to potentially explore entering into agreements with solar developers. The next step is to hear from our attorney with Drummond Woodsum, Aga Dixon. She's working very closely negotiating contracts, reviewing contracts between Competitive Energy Services and the potential developers. So that work is still ongoing. So the plan right now is to have her come in 2 weeks and speak to all of you. A lot of things should be finalized by then. She should have some really good information for you, as well as sort of taking a step back and talking about the process in general. What is this all about? What are the risks? What are the opportunities involved? So that's the update, is she should be here on February 5th to speak with all of you. And then it looks like the timeline would probably call for a vote of some sort if the board opts to move ahead on February 26th. Oh, and something I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. Since we last met, we've been talking with the city. I think I mentioned they did their own RFP, and a big piece of that was because they had land they wanted to potentially develop with solar. We're talking with the city, and our attorney is also reviewing the proposals they've received to see, might those be a better fit for us? So there's a lot of pieces in motion, but we're getting closer to having some good information that we can bring back to you. So that's where things stand with that.
Any questions for Adam? He answered your question. Right. Great, thank you, Adam. Okay. Moving on, the allocation of capital improvement funds. This time, there is
Billy Hunter's coming to the table.
So at this time, we'll hear from Adam as well as Billy Hunter, the Director of Support Services, to talk about some capital improvements that include swipe cards at some of our schools.
And I've also asked Dave Strom, who's multitasking, coming out from behind the cameras, to join us for this item. Dave is our systems analyst and works with all of our technology. So he and Billy are both very familiar with this project. So I thought it was important to have them here to answer any questions. So what this is all about is we're bringing to you a request to allocate some existing capital improvement funds. These are funds that we already have, to add on to our existing swipe card reader system. So currently at all of our schools, we have exterior access through swipe cards. Those are cards that are assigned to specific individuals, and we can turn them on and off as needed, whenever needed. In meeting with our school safety consultant, Scott Parker, and having a lot of internal discussions, we talked about that we'd like to move away from having keys for people to get into the building, doing away with exterior keys as much as possible, and going just to swipes for security reasons that can be turned on and off. If a swipe is lost, it gets shut off. If a key is lost, it's out there for someone to potentially find. We want to get away from that as much as possible. So what we did is Billy went around to each school, met with the principals, and talked about, if we went to this system, would you need more swipes at any of your doors, or are you all set? And so we looked at what would be necessary from a practical standpoint for teachers to get back inside with their kids from the playground, as an example. And so we really worked on that list, and at the end of the day, we identified 20 additional swipes that we would like to add across 8 of our schools. 2 of the schools we don't feel need any additional. And so this swipe card system is one that we've had in place for several years. So this isn't installing a new system, it's adding on to our existing, using our current vendor, which services the system. It's called a Silox system, and the vendor Exactitude is the only Silox vendor in the state of Maine. And so for those reasons, we just asked them for a cost, what it would cost to have them do the work. We feel it makes sense to have them do it, since they know the system and they would be servicing it. And the price to do the 20 swipes would be $61,738. I brought this to Finance Committee last week to Dave and Brian, and we discussed we'd like to take this from existing capital improvement money. And the reason we have that available is both the Park Avenue Classroom Addition project, as well as our LED lighting upgrades came in below budget. And we have about $60,000 available that we didn't need to complete those. We still have enough to do all of our other projects that have been tabbed on our list, and to do this project as well. The reason I asked in the potential motion to do up to $65,000 is just in case there's some sort of slight cost overrun. I don't want to have to come back and ask for another couple thousand. So I did the 65 as sort of a safety. So we're bringing that to you with your request to essentially add this project to our approved list. That would let us move forward and get it done this spring. We feel that it is a crucial safety item we'd like to take care of, and so we'd rather not wait. Because we feel the funds are available, we'd like to move ahead with it. So with that, do you have any questions or anything else that we can help you with?
I could never not have questions. How many or what schools do you think that don't need them?
I believe the two are the high school. We feel that we have what we need, and we wouldn't want to really invest anything into that building that we don't need to. And
Just to clarify, it doesn't mean they don't have swipes.
Right.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that they don't need additional.
Yeah,
Right,
I didn't know
they
if
don't need
yeah,
additional.
Yeah, okay. Just to be clear on that.
Thank you, Billy. Park Avenue, which obviously is our newest school, and they're set up pretty well, and the sense with the principals that they don't need any additional.
Is this the most important thing that we need right now to put that money to, since we have an extra $60,000? Is this the most important?
In terms of capital projects?
Yeah.
I would say yes, only because it's a safety issue that we want to move ahead with. The other items, and like I said, we still do have the money to do the other items on the list, so it's not that this is displacing anything. It's essentially saying, is this more important than something else that we could move up from down the line? And I would say yes, this is the most important one in my view. Dave or Billy can chime in if they'd like, but we all feel that it's the most important.
Any other questions, Dave?
No, I was going to make a motion that we approve the allocation of these capital funds for this project. It's safety. It's easy. So I make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All those, any further discussion? All those in favor? No, seeing no opposed, motion's passed.
Thank you very much. We'll get started on that and we'll keep you updated.
Anticipated completion on that?
Spring?
I believe we can get it done this spring.
Okay.
So, but I'll be in touch with Exactitude tomorrow to get the ball rolling on it. Thank you very much.
And you'll be in touch about cost. For example, it was anticipated at 61, but
Yeah, I believe the cost will be 61,738, but you never know what they might run into when they're actually doing it.
Yep.
But they did go around to each school. They've looked at all of the doors. So we feel like this is a very firm number, but you
So
never
in that-
know what you might hit in a wall or something, so.
And that information should probably come back to us in a finance report when you, for the, after you've done the project the following month should
Absolutely.
let us know.
And
where
we
are.
always discuss our ongoing CIP project in Finance Committee, so we'll be doing that, and we'll bring that back to you when we have information.
Great, thank you. Moving on to business this evening. First item up on the business is the superintendent search. Tonight, the school committee was sort of charged with, when we met last time, heard from different firms, also needing to decide whether or not we want to do interim or full. So I had asked you all to really do some thinking and come prepared tonight to vote on which way you would like to see us move. Before we do that, the first thing I would think we really need to decide is whether or not we will be going ahead with a full search for a superintendent position or interim. We've had discussion back and forth. I know we discussed it quite a bit at the retreat. And at this point, if there's any further, if no one needs to discuss further, if anyone is pretty much all set on to move ahead, I want to give you an opportunity to discuss. If you want to discuss interim versus full, seeing none needed. At this time, I would like, Dave?
I was going to just make a motion that
Go ahead. Absolutely.
My motion is that we move forward with searching for the full-time versus an interim, so a full-time.
Okay, so motion on the floor to search for to do a full superintendent search.
Second.
All those in favor? Seeing no opposed, motion has passed. We will enter into a full superintendent search. The next piece that we need to discuss is who we want to use to support us in this search. You have heard both from MSMA You have also heard from BWP. We've had lengthy discussions with both of them, so at this time, we need to decide who we will be employing for that search. I'm going to open that up for a little bit of discussion, or have most people decided they are ready to vote?
Ready to vote.
Ready to vote? Okay. So at this time,
Somebody needs to make a motion.
we need to
which-
make, we need to make a motion. If you are decided which one you would like, you can put that service forward. So you would make a motion to use the consultation services of,
I'll make the motion that we accept the project presented by MSMA.
Second.
any discussion? Right now, it's MSMA is on the table. All those in favor? Seeing no opposed. Motion is passed, so we will go for a full superintendent search using MSMA. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, Finance Committee, presentation of the finance report for December 2019. I do also want to share, sorry, I'm going to back up for just one moment. And Faith did share with me this evening that when this vote came up, that it was also her desire to go full search and use Maine School Management. So we are unanimous in that decision. All right, thank you. Finance. Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah, just one question on the superintendent search. So
Oh,
we've
sure.
decided on the full versus interim. We've also decided which one we're going to use.
Yes.
When is the plan to determine what services we're going to use from MSMA?
That will be, we have another workshop coming up that will be discussing superintendent search, so I think that's when we'll whittle down some of those really important details.
Perfect.
Okay, great, thank you.
I also have a question, actually. It's part of a correspondence, too. I was asked if there's a search committee for the new superintendent, and I said I don't think that we've set one up yet, but
Not yet.
that was the question from,
Not yet. When will be set up?
yes, when will they set up, and how will that look?
Yep, and we'll have to decide that at the, when we have their first initial meeting between the chair and the co-chair. We'll set that up. Okay, yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Moving on, finance report.
Okay, well, Finance Committee meeting met on Wednesday. We had elections. Dave was much faster at the draw than I was. So
You are the chair.
I am the chair of the Finance Committee.
Did you do this?
We reviewed the warrants that were outstanding, and motion was to pay all the warrants that were outstanding. We also had discussion in regards to the item just voted on about the security measures for the schools. Dave and the rest of us had decided that the proper way to do it would be to go with the badge system. It's a system that's in use in most other federal buildings and would save the schools in long-term money. Technically, when you lose a key, the locks has to be replaced, and then all keys have to be destroyed. That can be quite costly. So we thought that this would be basically a good expense. When you lose a badge, the badge is $1. You simply turn that badge off and issue another one. So then we discussed future meetings. We do have a schedule for that, although I don't have them with me.
Yeah, generally, Finance Committee will meet on the Thursday preceding the second meeting of the month, because the second meeting is when we present our report, so that would give us time if there's anything that the Finance Committee wants to bring forward. One other thing I'll mention, I think I've mentioned it to all of you at our workshop, and I mentioned again in Finance, was that we had applied for some funding through the Volkswagen Settlement Fund for potentially 2 new school buses, which would have been funded at 80%. We did receive 2 a year ago. We went in and applied again for round 2. Unfortunately, I learned yesterday that we did not receive any funding on that. There were a lot of requests. I think the state said there was $8 million in total requests, and part of the scoring was districts that didn't receive any funding last year. So unfortunately, we came up short on that. But you'll be hearing more about buses at budget time, but I just wanted to give you an update on that one.
Any questions regarding the finance report that was part of your onboarding package for this evening's meeting?
I just have a couple of questions, something that one. Have we thought about, I think I've seen some research done about electric buses, and although they might be more expensive, the fuel cost is offset. I'm not quite sure. I just wanted to see if that was looked into.
So I think what I'd say as far as electric buses is there's a lot of interest on the state's part. There's a lot of interest in the stakeholders, and I think those discussions are really ramping up. In fact, I think there's a bill potentially moving forward to incentivize some of that. I would say my 2 cents is that we're very early into that technology, and we'll be watching it with great interest. I know Billy will, to see how does that working, how is the battery life working, how are the charging stations working. And I did see in the Volkswagen grant that Portland and Mount Desert Island put in and received funding toward an electric bus. So I think we're going to start to see some of them roll out. And I would say it's something that we keep our eye on and consider at what point does it make sense to perhaps bring some into our fleet.
And you just shared an article with Billy and I about electric buses, so you could send it out to the board.
Yeah, I'll do that.
We read an article this week.
There we go. Yeah, I had seen the state legislature and about the incentives, so I was curious what incentives offset, et cetera.
Sure. Yeah, there was an article in the Sun Journal yesterday, which I think was from their sister publication, the Press Herald, but it was in yesterday's paper. I'll forward that link to all of you so you can see it.
Thank you, Rose. Any other questions regarding the finance report for December 2019? Seeing no further questions, can we get a motion to approve the finance report for December 2019?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? No opposed? Passed. Thank you. All right. Subcommittee appointments. This evening, I want to make sure I publicly apologize. Last meeting, we had some subcommittee appointment that I missed. Appointing Faith Fontaine on the Wellness Committee. For some reason, her name just did not come out of my mouth when I was doing subcommittee appointments. So she has accepted. I have extended my apology, spoke with Faith personally, and so I am appointing her to the Wellness Subcommittee. This evening, we are also adding on and making public that we are also adding on a technology committee. Brian Belknap brought about the request to add a technology subcommittee, so we're adding that on. And Brian, I am appointing you to the technology subcommittee for that purpose. Mr. Peter Robinson will serve as the school department rep on that as well. There is also an opening right now on the building committee. Since our last meeting, Beth Favre was a parent and community member. She resigned from the new Edward Little Building Committee, which leaves an opening. So after some careful consideration and giving some thought around this, I'm nominating Pam Albert as the citizen rep for the school committee. Pam has been very involved. She was here again this evening. She's been to all of our new building committee meetings. She has attended lots of task forces. She has 2 children in the system. She has 1 child who will actually be graduating from the EL building. So a long-time Auburn rep, so made sense to ask her to move from a public position into a committee position. So she is my nominee for building committee. So with that being said, can we have a motion to approve the additional nominations to subcommittee?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion's passed. Upcoming meetings. Next week, we are scheduled for a workshop on January 29th, according to the schedule that Katie shared with us on the 8th of January. It is for workshop only for new superintendent search. At that time for workshop, and I know that, know that you may not be able to, you will not be here. There are a few that will not be here. However, I think it's important that we still move on. I think the majority of us can still be here so that we can iron out what this superintendent search will look like and really be able to form the committee and decide how many reps of everyone we want on the committee. So next Wednesday night, 6 p.m., we'll do a workshop for the new superintendent search. That's an upcoming meeting. Future meetings are on your meetings and agendas. The last item on our future agenda items. I know some of you have asked how you get agenda items added, and you can do that either by emailing myself, or get a hold of me. You can do that through getting a hold of Katie as well. Or when this item comes up on the agenda, you can go ahead and add it at that point. It's something you want to add to future agenda. Does anyone have any future agenda items they would like to add? Seeing none at this time, know that that's always an open line of communication, just to know that you can add something on there. Okay? Moving right along. We are not entering executive session tonight, so seeing at this time, I think we're ready to adjourn. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned, 7:35.
So quick. I didn't even mean to ask.